Welcome to the Talk Sox podcast. I'm Alex, and as always, I'm here with Adam and Maddie. What's up, guys?
Not much. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. How are you, Maddie?
Doing well.
We're a week into spring training. Everyone's real excited that baseball is finally back.
And everyone's talking about that Red Sox acquisition. The only man. Well, I think maybe he has. I think maybe Bregman has caught up, but Trace Thompson with his 2 home runs so far in spring training.
Yes. Brings championship pedigree to the Boston Red Sox. That's something nobody's talking about through his brother. But
yeah, I mean, so far it's not these aren't meaningful games, but I've heard that we have some good competitions going on right now.
Definitely. I know that, Maddie, you've watched a handful of baseball since spring training started. I think that for the most part, especially the first few innings, in my opinion, have given me quite a bit of hope going into the season, looking at the starters and how they're performing already.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of meaningful baseball playing, not even just at the beginning, towards the end of games as well. And that's just a testament to the farm system depth.
Yeah, I know we all came into camp like really excited for Campbell and Anthony. Marcelo Meyer has been just a blast to watch so far this spring. Had you asked me going into spring training, I would have assumed that he would be pretty well behind the other two in terms of looking like an MLB ready player. I think that as it stands currently, he has passed Campbell, in my opinion. Campbell collected his first hit today against the Orioles, so that was nice to see. But carried an offer going into today, and I think just from watching him and from reading some comments from Alex Cora, that Campbell has been pressing quite a bit with some of the pressure that's on him. And that's something we talked about on the last episode, a lot of pressure on a kid going into spring training to take over potentially as the starting second baseman for the Boston Red Sox after a year in the minors. So I'm not super shocked to see him not doing as hot so far. I think he may have already played himself out of the second base conversation because he's been seeing a ton of time in left field this spring already.
I know that's something that has been floated around is that, Campbell could see time in left field in the majors, and you might see if Wilyer can't start the season, that maybe Campbell, that's a way to get him on the roster to start at least. And then, depending on how he performs in the majors, you might see him taking some time away from Ceddanne Rafaela, but Rafaela is actually having a pretty good spring so far. What have you guys
first homer. He had the first homer of spring training. He is noticeably bigger, which we'll talk more about that kind of in detail just across the roster later this episode. It looks like to me his hands are lower. He's not loading up from as tall of a position in the batter's box. And that's the same thing they did to Devers 2 seasons ago to kind of fix his back path as they lowered his hands and kind of put a little more into his hips in his swing. And so far for Rafael, it seems to be paying dividends to the point that I think that, the people who were talking about, I can't believe Cora and Breslow came out and said that he was our center fielder before everybody else. Like, why did Rafael get that vote of confidence? They seem to know something that none of us did until spring training started. And he looks like a different hitter.
Yeah, he totally changed his swing in the offseason. Like you said, Alex, he has the lowered hands and also the addition of a leg kick, which seems to help him generate more power. Which
I think it puts his timing a lot better too.
And he showed signs of power at some points last year, and the added muscle too helps.
What about his patience? I mean, strikeouts seem to be like the biggest issue with his game last season, but I've seen some indications that maybe he's turning over a new leaf on that.
I think so. I'd say that his at-bats to me are probably, out of the people who were rostered last year on the Major League roster, his has been the most fun to watch in my opinion, because he does look like a totally different hitter. He is waiting out pitches. He's not swinging out of his shoes at sliders that aren't anywhere near the zone like he was, especially at the end of last year. He was pressing really hard to close the season last year. And it's been really nice to watch him take pitches and take some walks, because he really didn't take any walks much at all last year, but he's hunting. That's probably the best description. As you can tell, he's out there hunting for specific pitches now.
And the reason that you had to kind of put that convoluted spin of people who were rostered last year is because Trace Thompson had the most fun at bats to watch.
Absolutely. It's a smooth swing, 2 homers. I don't know how he's not in the conversation.
Can't ask for more, honestly.
So we've got Rafaela. I think, Adam, kind of to your point with Wilyer, which for those who maybe don't know, he's still dealing with a GI illness to the point that he can't be around the team. And he has not started as of today, March 3rd. He has not started workouts with the team, any baseball activities that we've heard of. So I think there is some legitimate concern about whether or not Wilyer will be able to be ready by opening day. And I've read some stuff over the weekend that he's lost quite a bit of weight. So he's trending in the opposite direction from the other beefier men in camp.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, for you being a teacher, I'm sure you know that at the beginning of every school year, everyone gets sick because you haven't been around at that many people all at once in a long time.
Yeah.
But to, 3 weeks into spring training to still be out with an illness, you do kind of have to start wondering if this is going
to be. It seems pretty serious.
Yeah, you have to wonder if this is going to be like a Vaughn Grissom situation where, he ends up losing a lot of weight. Had trouble.
That's actually where I was headed with it.
Because you don't want to.
Is it going to impact his power?
Right. Exactly. And so I think that is a legitimate worry at this point.
I think maybe the thought process is right now, if he's not ready, I don't know if Campbell will be the next man up to take that spot. I actually think Roman Anthony has played his way into that discussion. He's had a slower start to the season than Marcelo Meyer, but he has taken really, really good at bats. He's not chasing a whole lot. He made, was it 2 games ago against the Phillies? He misplayed a ball in right field. That's going to happen. He's young. I will say yesterday, swapping back to Campbell for a second, towards the end of that game, there was a slow roller to second where he and Mayer both covered second base, and Campbell had to kind of make up ground to field the ball. And it'll go down as a hit, but it gave up a run, and you could kind of see that he knew he did something wrong, but his first instinct was to cover the bag, even though on a ball hit to second base, that's definitely Marcelo's job. And the pitcher, I forget who was on the mound at the time, wasn't able to field the ball cleanly at all. So, you see those small mistakes, and you could forgive that in spring training. But if we're 2 weeks into the season and we saw that, there would be people on Twitter calling for his head, wanting him to be sent back down. And so I'd rather see that come out in spring training and let us know, hey, maybe he does need some more seasoning time down at AAA, and maybe give Roman the call, which I think would shift the entire outfield to the right. I think you'd have to play Roman in left field. Jaron moves to center and Rafaela moves to right. I think is by far the best alignment for outfield if that's going to be the case, whether it's Campbell or Anthony.
I will say that Roman Anthony and Trace Thompson do have the same batting average right now in spring training. So
wow,
I think that could be a competition.
Once again, that's on me. That's on me. I didn't even factor Trace into the equation.
No, and Trace actually has a stolen base as well. So,
oh my god,
I don't know if you can tell, but the only
how do you think his 3-ball is?
The only line I actually lined up was Trace Thompson's spring training stats. So I'll be relying on that all day.
Do you think that there's going to be an over/under Trace Thompson on underdog this season?
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I'm just going to play the over every single game.
But I guess, you mentioned Marcelo Myers there. The competition for second base seems to be the one that's heating up the most. What do we
And I think it's
see
changed
there?
drastically in the last week.
Yeah, it seems like everybody thought Grissom and Campbell would be fighting for the spot, but now it seems like it's Meyer and Hamilton in competition.
Marcel's played mostly short throughout spring training. Don't you think it? I think Grissom still got. Grissom has looked great at second and at the plate. I think it's a Grissom Hamilton fight right now. I don't think Bregman is factoring into this at all anymore, which will lead us to a different topic here in a minute. But I think that if it comes down to it, I really do. I think it's going to be almost a platoon split between Hamilton and Grissom for second base right now. If the season started tomorrow, that would be my guess. It will not shock me if David Hamilton wins out. He looks great. His speed is there. He's gotten bigger as well, and hasn't lost any speed. His bat looks really, really good. He looks very smooth at second. Grissom does too. Grissom looks huge as well. But I don't know. I don't think that right now, I don't think that you can factor Christian Campbell into that equation. He's being pretty well outclassed by two members that are already major league ready, quote unquote, and who played the position last year. And I think that they both offer significant upside into this season. And it does make me feel good that a spot that was a black hole, as we've talked about on a couple past episodes. Like if it's Grissom and he goes down, Hamilton can take over starting second base or vice versa. And I think even in a pinch, you could shift Trevor Story back to second and call up Marcelo to play shortstop and still be pretty good up the middle.
I know that last episode we had talked, at least mentioned a little bit about how much I like David Hamilton, how much I think you, Alex, said you like David Hamilton as well. And, the end of the season, last season, he got injured, was basically out for the last, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And that really kind of put a damper on any case he had for maybe getting any rookie of the year votes. But for a chunk of the middle of the season,
he had more stolen bases than Jarren Duran.
Yeah. For the middle of the season, he had a really great couple of months there where, exactly. Stolen base wise, he was always a threat, probably our biggest threat. And, once he got over the hump, he started hitting. So I would love to see him break with the team. I do kind of question what that means for the rest of the roster. Because I think last episode we sort of all agreed that he seemed like he was going to be one of the odd men out. But if he ends up
change that conversation.
Yeah, if he ends up being the second baseman, I do sort of wonder what that means for the rest of the infield alignment, DH, etc.
If they believe in Campbell even after camp and let's say Campbell does not figure it out in camp, which is possible. He's very young, and I mean he wasn't with the big league camp really at all last year. So let's say it doesn't go well for the next couple of weeks before the season starts, and he starts off in AAA. I think that if Hamilton's the guy, it forces Vaughn into a bench role, which I don't think is terrible. They've worked him out at third and left field, so he's got some position flexibility there. But if Vaughn looks the way he looks in regular season during spring training, when he gets a shot, I mean, I said last episode, I think that he could be a pretty well primed trade candidate come the trade deadline if he keeps producing like this and Hamilton is still producing like this. If you were going to force my hand last week or 2 weeks ago when we recorded, I would have told you that Hamilton would probably be the odd man out just because of what the Red Sox gave up to get Vaughn Grissom. But David Hamilton looks like he very well could be the second baseman of the future right now in Boston. And that's a lot of pressure and praise for a kid who hasn't had a full season yet. But, man, he looks great.
I think as far as the hasn't had a full season yet convo, I mean, Vaughn Grissom really hasn't had a full season in the majors yet either. And I think we think of him as being
absolutely
I think we think of him as being a veteran because he played for a little bit with the Braves towards the end of that season before the trade. And then, was kind of thought to be the guy who was going to start at second base and be the second baseman last year for the Red Sox. And obviously that didn't happen. But is he 22 now or 23? He's in his early 20s. He's basically the same age as many.
Isn't he younger than Rafaela?
Yeah, I was going to say he's about the same age as a lot of these prospects that are being so heralded. So I wonder about the idea of if Hamilton is the guy who they decide is the starting second baseman, if Grissom starts on the major league roster, because he's still developing. You want him to have those constant at bats. I wonder if that leads to.
Do you get those at bats over Campbell at AAA though? I guess that's the question of how much do you believe in Campbell?
I think it's how much do you believe that
seems like.
It's how much do you believe that Campbell
Go ahead.
at second base? Because I think that right now they're moving Campbell around a little bit more than I think we thought. And so I think there's a chance that, maybe they keep Grissom getting at bats at second and, move Campbell around because he has that kind of positional versatility, at least a little.
I've sat on a take since my favorite player in the majors failed to come to an agreement with the Toronto Blue Jays.
I was going to make a joke that this was going to be a Vlad Guerrero Jr. take, and then it actually is, which is too good.
It is. And I think that Campbell's positional flexibility plays a lot into this. So we talked last episode about Jarren Duran's quote-unquote extension, in my opinion, makes him infinitely more tradable. A package of Jarren Duran, Tristan Casas, and a AAA pitcher lands us Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at the trade deadline.
What AAA pitcher would you be including, would you say?
Based on what we've seen so far, I think it would have to be either Richard Fitz or Quinn Priester, even though we're hunting for David Sandlin with that question.
Thank you. Thank you for just giving it to me. I was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is touching 100. He has looked very, very good in the videos that we have seen. Richard Fitz looked phenomenal coming out of the pen a couple games ago. To the point that if that continues, Cutter's expendable. Not that I honestly don't think we'll see Cutter at all this season with the way that they keep talking about this injury. I think surgery is on the table, and I think that it's pretty close to being a real thing. I would say in that trade, if Cutter was healthy, I think Cutter gets that trade done as well. And maybe he's thrown into it for next season. But I mean, I think David Sandlin is, or not David Sandlin. I think Richard Fitz is forcing a conversation of, hey, we might need to take an actual look at this guy as our fifth starter this year. Whereas last year we were just hoping and praying that we would have 3 healthy. Now it looks like we have 7 or 8, not counting Cutter, because Priester has looked good in his outings as well. And people are going to get hurt. That's part of it. Like, you need depth in AAA. But I think that if you were to make a package of Tristan Casas, who would have to be the odd man out in this if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. does come to Boston, obviously. I think that if you package him, Jarren Duran, and somebody like Quinn Priester, somebody from the AAA depth, I think that deal gets done pretty quickly.
I guess my question is, when we did talk about this last week, how we ended up talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Last episode is still a little fuzzy to me, but when we talked about it, it really depended on Pete Alonso maybe going to Toronto. And with that not happening, I do sort of wonder if Guerrero is going anywhere this year.
I think if the Blue Jays are 10 games out of it come trade deadline, you have to trade him. If he has given you every indication that he has no intention of re-signing with your team, which so far he hasn't, because the reports came out that they were offering historic levels of contracts to him, which I assume means around the $450 million that he has been quoted as wanting, and he still turned them down. I don't think that there's really any chance that he sticks with them after this season. So if you're out of it, you need to get something for him.
And Maddie, how do you feel about the prospects of trading your boy, Tristan Casas?
That seems like an egregious overpay for half a season of a dude who might not even
You've got to be
extension with the
positive
team.
he resigns. Yeah, you've got to be positive he resigns.
Yeah, and just paying over $400 million for an unathletic dude who's not good at defense and has struggled with his weight a lot for a young guy too is just kind of I can't swallow that pill.
It's very Pablo Sandoval-esque.
Exactly.
I mean, he has
those are fighting words.
He has better hair than Pablo Sandoval, but
100%, and to our knowledge, has broken no belts.
To our knowledge, is big there. But yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with Maddie. When you first said trade, I thought like, are you talking about like working something out before the beginning of the season? But trade,
no, that ship sailed at this point.
Trade halfway through the season, that does seem like an overpay. Like the Red Sox would have to be like really in a fight for, the AL East title, like tied or like within a game or something to want to make that trade, because like,
oh no, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to try to land, if they're in the position to trade him, you're going to have to overpay for him. It's similar. I mean, Bregman was an overpay, and that's money, not players. Bregman's an overpay, but it shows that the front office is willing to overextend themselves to get the player that they want. I think that if, especially Jarren Duran is not in your future next 5 years plan, you've got to flip him at some point before he reaches arbitration in 3 years. If it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I love Tristan Casas. As it stands right now, I don't want him to go anywhere. If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is coming into the fold, he's the odd man out. If Bregman is still around, could he play third? Sure. Is it that much of a defensive upgrade over Devers? No. So you would want to stick him at first because that's where you can hide him long enough and then have Devers at DH, Bregman at third, Hamilton, Grissom up the middle, Story, Marcelo at short. And it's a potent infield.
So, I mean, in that little alignment, you said Devers at DH. So what does that mean for Yoshida? I assume that's also something that we probably are talking about when we break camp too. What does that mean for Yoshida?
So I don't think Yoshida starts the season playing. I mean, he's looked good in his one at bat or in his one start. But if Cora is serious about Yoshida seeing time in the outfield, which is dumb, he's not ready for that. I think that realistically, Yoshida becomes a fifth outfielder, maybe slots in at DH occasionally. I still don't think we're that far off from him being DFA'd if that is the decision that needs to happen. If they're not super concerned with the optics of how that looks to other Japanese players who effectively play for the Dodgers AAA program right now, then I don't see them having a problem DFAing Yoshida. I don't necessarily think that's the correct thing, but you're not going to get somebody to trade for him right now. I think the last hope for that was Dylan Cease to try to get the Padres to take on some kind of money with that. And as Breslow said, the roster is done. And then they went out and signed another pitcher. But I don't see any trade like that happening now that camp has gotten solidly underway. I think that Yoshida would be, again, trade deadline piece.
And I am a little shocked that we didn't do a Nick Birdie emergency podcast, because I really thought that maybe, really solidifying the bullpen would warrant one.
I don't know.
Do we think that Birdie ever pitches for the Red Sox in the majors?
No.
Pure depth.
Hard to know.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of things have to go wrong.
Everybody can
it's
track
the perfect storm.
Wyler's GI.
Yeah.
Wyler's
GI is.
Yeah.
That might be the name of my fantasy team this year, honestly. Wyler's GI. That's a good one. I guess I don't want to get us too off track, but since you did mention Fitz, I do kind of wonder about the bullpen at this point. Once Jansen signed with the Angels, not that he was ever coming back, and Martin signed with the Rangers, I started really thinking about it, and we haven't replaced those two guys really. And so the bullpen actually seems like it might be worse than it was last year. And I'm wondering if my perception of that, do you guys share that, or do you think that the bullpen is going to be okay?
Maddie, you have some quick thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. Chapman is kind of a concern with his batted balls.
We got a very
Hendricks,
vintage Chapman appearance yesterday.
I know it's only one game for Liam Hendricks, but even then that was kind of rocky, giving up Jose Siri's third home run in spring training.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is you're looking at, instead of signing players that maybe could fill those roles, it seems like the Red Sox are really banking on either maybe having too many starters, and so a starter having to be a bullpen arm, or you're looking at injured players coming back and filling in those roles. And so I do worry about that, about, between the Chapman and Hendricks, like, where do the saves come from? And if those two guys are
I don't think from either one of them.
You don't think either one?
No, and I'm being 100% legitimate about that.
You've been on Slayton for a while.
I wrote something.
Who you're thinking?
Yeah. Guerrero's got a good shot at it, man. He has looked phenomenal this spring training. I think that right now the best in-house candidate that's on the team is Justin Slayton to close games. He's young. He's got filthy stuff. I even would still throw a vote behind Whitlock. Cora said that Whitlock is on track to begin the season. That's phenomenal. We've seen what he can do in that high leverage role. In 21, he was closing games occasionally. But I think Justin Slayton should be the closer of the Boston Red Sox by May at the latest. And I respect Hendricks for coming out and saying, like, hey, it's not my job yet. I need to win it. It's a competition. There's a lot of good guys here. Part of me wonders if that's him kind of seeing the writing on the wall. And like you said, his one appearance hasn't been good. But Luis Guerrero looks tough as nails out there, and his stuff is playing up. He's faced some actual, like, names you've heard of. He's not just striking out a bunch of AA guys that got the big league invite for the next 4 or 5 days before they get sent to minor league camp. And then, we saw what Slayton could do last year. And I think that if he's built on that, I don't know if there's a better candidate to be the closer for the Boston Red Sox this year than Justin Slayton. He looks like he could be the closer for the next 10 to 12 years if they're willing to throw the money at him. Not right now, obviously, and that's high praise for a Rule 5 guy. But I would have said very similar things about Garrett Whitlock coming out of 21 before he got shuffled to the starting rotation and got hurt and shuffled back and forth and got hurt again. And
I think that the Red Sox have, they in general have a really impressive Rule 5 record at this point. And Slayton seems to be a consensus guy of could potentially be a closer. I wonder if Cora is actually willing to think about Slayton that way, or if the fact that you have two guys that have as many career saves as Hendricks and Chapman, if the role automatically is going to go to them before you even get a chance to try Slayton.
I know for at least Chapman, he didn't start closing for the Pirates last year until late in the season. So he's at least had some experience with no longer being the guy. Hendricks really doesn't have that outside of the injury issues, but I think that he's a smart enough individual that if his stuff is being knocked around, I could see him going to AC and being like, hey, I can pitch the 7th, but you don't want me coming in with the game on the line right now. He seems to be the kind of guy who doesn't have a problem kind of telling you how it is, whether it's good or bad for him. So I hope that, yes, I think we start the season with probably Hendricks as our closer. I don't think Chapman really has a shot at it. I don't see any way we make it into the summer months with either one of them closing ball games.
I hope you're right. I think we've seen it before with Cora where he, despite being sort of a new, not an old school guy necessarily, but he does seem to have a bee in his bonnet about giving some deference to veterans like that. I think of Danny Santana being on the major league roster for as long as he was when he was hitting like 100 forever. So, so I question that, but I am interested in how that all shakes out, because for the things that were rocky last year, the fact that the 8th and the 9th weren't generally that rocky. I'm not saying Jansen was perfect, but he was pretty good. And as you said, so far the 8th and 9th inning rolls don't look as promising from the main contenders.
No, I can agree with that until we start seeing actual results in meaningful games. Yes, we have no direct replacement for Chris Martin or Kenley, but I think that if Cora is willing to not play the seniors, to borrow from high school coaching, then I think we've got a much better shot at having a closer who could be, like I said, a generational type closer. I'm not saying he's going to be like the best closer to ever put on the Red Sox uniform, but Justin Slayton has the makeup to me of somebody who could be here for 10 years and man the 9th inning with no problems.
Okay. So I know I got us off on a little bit of a bullpen tangent, but I know we wanted to fully dissect the Devers thing, because last episode we talked a lot about Devers' comments about being the third baseman, and we all said it was sort of overblown and that Bregman was definitely going to be the second baseman. And as we just talked about, it sort of looks like Bregman's not going to be the second baseman, and maybe the comments weren't all that overblown. So what's your take on those now?
I think that at the end of the day, Devers will do what he's told to do, or asked to do by AC. I know that, Poppy came out and said this isn't just some any day player. This is Rafael Devers. He's the face of your franchise. He's a leader. If he wants to play third base, he plays third base. And I respect Poppy. They let him still play first, but you can hide defensive inequities. You can hide the lapses in his defense a lot easier at first than you can at the hot corner. And I saw a stat where I don't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but Devers has been very, very good in the postseason. So it seems to maybe be his third base issues are a matter of focus and not necessarily a matter of the corner being too hot for him. But I think that the fact that he still has not really, I mean, he hasn't played at all to date. He's projected to be in the lineup on Wednesday, the 5th. But that's a week and a half into games. I think these shoulders are still bothering him more than they would like for them to be bothering him. And so I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that he begins the season as the DH. And the conversation is, okay, well, we need to protect your shoulder. We don't want you diving after balls. We don't want you taking short hops off your chest. And then as the season progresses, it's like, well, we're in first, and Bregman's been playing third while we're in first. So we're going to keep Bregman playing third and you're going to keep hitting. And I think that kind of winning fixes everything, to quote Evan Drellick. And
he was the one who coined that phrase, right? I'm pretty sure.
It's the title of his book, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
But Evan Drellick's conversation for another day. But I think that if we're winning and Devers is DHing to start the season, I don't think he will have a problem continuing to DH as long as we continue to win.
I guess that's where the rub really is I mean, my ears perked up when you said we're in first place, and I thought that seems maybe a little foolhardy. Not that I don't think we have what it takes to be a first place team, but as you already see with some of like the little injuries cropping up and who we're talking about being ready for opening day and who we think might not be ready for opening day, or in Crawford's case, might not be ready for the season ever kind of thing. Like, there are those kind of injuries that crop up and things do happen. And so I fear that if the Red Sox aren't in first place, what those conversations end up being like, because I think that the Red Sox are really slow playing Devers getting back. And so you probably don't have to worry about him starting the season playing third base, because I don't think the Red Sox are going to really even test him out there at third base much during spring training.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wonder if they're not in first place, what those conversations are, and if things do get contentious, because I still can't really tell how contentious those comments were. I don't think that our initial read on the situation was like that far off from what actually is going on. Because I know Alex Spear talked about it kind of extensively about how Devers needs to prepare himself to be a third baseman and only a third baseman, because that's how he has improved his third base defense, as much as we can say,
Mm-hmm.
His defense isn't great, but I can't imagine how much worse it would be if he thought that there was a chance he wasn't going to be a third baseman. So he didn't put all of his time into that. So, but I do wonder if them being in second or third place with, the Orioles and Yankees ahead of them, if Devers is like, well, I should be the third baseman. I'm healthy now.
I will say I don't know how plugged into like the Section 10 guys, everybody who listens, and you guys are. They have been in Fort Myers, and Carabas is close with a decent number of people on the team. And they opened the last episode with saying that it is absolutely not even an issue of discussion in Fort Myers. That there is no contention between him and Bregman, that there is nothing going on with the team that leads them to believe. And they straight up asked people, hey, is there a problem? And they were told no. I think with the people that Carabas is close to, if that wasn't the case, it wouldn't have even been brought up. And so I legitimately, and I know we've had some discourse about it in the Slack channel. I legitimately don't think that this is going to be an issue. At the end of the day, everybody on that team wants to win a World Series, and you're going to do what is needed to do that. And at the end of the day, you're an employee. And if your boss, in this case, Alex Cora, says you're going to DH and you say, no, you're not, okay, somebody else would want to DH for the Boston Red Sox. Like, you know, I don't think that there's a whole lot to this. Devers doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to have a major issue. Like I said, I think even if we're in the wild card, yes, first in the division would be phenomenal. I think if we are in control of a playoff spot, everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think I've heard the same thing. It wasn't Section 10, but I do believe maybe it was Chris Cotillo. I heard him talking about it, and he said the same thing, that there's no animosity there. Devers and Bregman are getting along fine. I think it's more
they've gone out to dinner multiple times.
Yeah, I don't think the animosity would be between them. I think the animosity would just be like Devers being prideful of wanting to have the clout of being a position player, or the clout of being a third baseman as opposed to a DH or a first baseman. Because I think no matter what he is saying, he did make it clear that the Red Sox at some point in these discussions about getting Bregman or getting Arenado, they kind of at least made it seem like that wasn't a real concern and that Rafi shouldn't be concerned about that. And so I think maybe he feels just like a little bit lied to. So,
I get that. And I think that Cora coming out after those comments were made and being like, different regime, Heim's in St. Louis now. I don't know if that was maybe the best soundbite from AC, who is typically very well thought before he speaks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's not wrong. Heim is the one that got that deal done, and he's the one who said that. And at the end of the day, if Breslow doesn't want Rafi on third, which you can argue for or against, and he tells AC, hey, it's Bregman, then AC is going to put Bregman at third.
Yeah. So do you see Bregman getting any reps other places besides third in spring training? Like, do you see them even moonlighting, moving him around a little bit?
Maybe a little bit to keep him flexible. So that way, if an injury does pop up, then he can shift to second, but not a ton.
Yeah, I mean, you made it sound like there are at least two pretty solid second base options at this point. So the idea that are there going to be, is there going to be competition for second base? No. So the only competition really is at third, it feels like, at this point. And I don't know. I don't see him. I don't know if I think that he wants to play a middle infield position. Do you get the feeling that he has any interest in it?
Bregman?
Yeah.
I think personally he would probably want to play third, but again, these are employees of the organization, so I guess they'll go wherever they're told to go. And any of that perceived beef between Bregman and Devers, it could have been ownership, more like, oh, you're mad at your boss, but you're not mad at your coworker.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that that's true. I wonder if, I don't know. I just wonder about if they are going to try to save face at all by saying, working Bregman out at other positions, just so that it's not putting a nail in the coffin of Devers at third base. Not necessarily, I don't know, I guess just to placate Devers, to move the conversation down the line. So like Alex said, that when and if the Red Sox are winning and Devers is ready to play third, they can be like, well, it's just been going so well with Bregman. Let's not mess with the good thing, you know? So I wonder if, just to give the appearance, if they'll play him at second or short or something.
I don't know if Short's in the mix. I could see a little bit of second. But I think part of the conversation that really I haven't heard a ton about is Bregman could opt out after this year. And if the change is made to make Devers your full-time DH this season, do you shift him back to third if Alex Bregman opts out after this year? What does that look like? Do you go out and try to trade for Nolan Arenado again at that point? Do you?
I thought you were going to say.
Are you trying to?
I thought you were going to say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. again.
I don't want him at third if we have him. I mean, I don't think that he's going to be an improvement over Devers at third. I would rather keep Devers at DH, shift Casas to third, and put Vlad at first. And you talk about thump.
Yeah.
If third base is an open position in 2026, go after Murakami.
Ooh.
It's an interesting.
I mean, I do like that. I like that a lot.
One can dream.
But there, I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's going to play for the Dodgers, and they're going to trade Max Muncy for peanuts and 6 baseballs, and somehow have 57 roster spots. But
I mean, it's one. I would personally, like you guys, I would love that. That'd be amazing. But I think
I forgot he's going to be a free agent next year.
But I think with the prospect,
he'll get posted next year.
I think with the prospect logjam, isn't it like a little bit more plausible that they try out, I don't know, Myers or someone at third, Hamilton at third before?
I think Marcelo makes the most sense. If Blaze Jordan could find his power, maybe.
I mean,
that was the name that I kept hearing in the Arenado deal was Blaze Jordan.
Doesn't Story have an opt-out after this year?
He does.
I can't like, even if he has a good year, like, nope. I just don't see it. He's just been so injured that it would be like, I don't think he'd get the same.
I also don't see Bregman opting out because no one else is going to pay him $40 million this season. If he has an MVP caliber year, yes.
Yeah, he would have to believe that there would be a 7-year deal or something on the table out, in the market to go out, because I mean, yeah, he's not going to get $40 million a year, but I think that if someone was willing to offer him, 7 years, 30 AAV, like, maybe that tempts him a little bit, to have to be locked in for. But he would have to have a career year or something like that.
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he'll have a good year.
I agree that it's like a talking point that you haven't heard a lot about, is everyone kind of talks about like Bregman's here, Bregman's making this huge difference on the team and with the mindset. But yeah, there is the chance that he's here for 1 year. He's a Adrian Beltre or something, But I'm not sure if that's really plausible. I did want to talk about someone else who, we talk about making a very big deal when they're on the team. And that's, did you see these rumors of JD Martinez talking with the Yankees about possible going to the Yankees?
I had not. I would not like that.
That was my first thought too, is I thought, he's like the one guy who I don't know if you want him playing.
Just bring him in as a hitting coach.
I think that he just wants to play too much, that you can't get him to do that at this point.
He can be a player coach. He can pinch hit in the 8th. It's fine.
Yeah. Pinch hit in the eighth. I like that. Yeah, because I mean, he doesn't have any defensive value, despite the Red Sox attempting to play him a few times in the outfield. But
and then rolling his ankle as he runs to left.
Yeah, still one of the funniest injuries, I think. Didn't he like step on the bag or something when he was running out? And
on purpose, yes.
Yeah, and his foot slipped off of it. Yeah, I do recall that.
You know, the final game of the season that determined whether we got into the wild card or not. You know. Against the Nats.
If Stanton is injured, though, that could be a very real possibility for the Yankees.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, as much as I think we have talked about the Yankees offense really not being very good outside of Judge and Soto last year, and now without Soto, it's seeming like they have a huge hole. If anyone could turn that around, it feels like the JD Martinez magic maybe could. So that is worrying to me. I sort of saw that and I was like, is there any way the Red Sox could sign him? Like, just get a third DH on our roster. But yeah, so.
I mean, Manny asked to get traded to Pawtucket back in the day. So we just convinced JD to go hang out in Worcester for a season and just hit monster nukes.
I mean, I'm sure the people of Western Mass would absolutely love that. Well,
I'd make the trip.
Yeah, so I saw that and I immediately thought of you because I remember you talking about how like maybe we should sign him, but yeah, going to the Yankees would be a big deal.
I would hate that.
Yeah.
And I would hope that they would change their facial hair policy just to make him shave so he could see what he's done to himself.
I know we never actually talked about them, editing their facial hair policy, but it's a real shame that they did that after they made.
After Devin Williams shaved? Yeah.
I mean, after Devin Williams shaved, but I mean, remember Andrew Miller when he went there after being in Boston, just having that absolutely incredible beard in Boston and then looking like a young boy in New York. It was, I remember that being particularly disturbing to me at the time. So, it is, that was sort of a shocking change to see from the Yankees and a very weird, like, are they trying to?
Was it Wells that came out and was like, I was brainwashed into shaving? Like,
yeah. And I guess there's already been some backlash from seasoned Yankees players who
well, and like the fans all over social media, like, Hal's spinning in his grave. Like, okay. Like, what's next? City Connect uniforms? Probably.
I mean, if you want to sign, high-priced players, City Connect uniforms, they sell, as you can tell whenever you go to any opposing ballpark. You see a Red Sox yellow and blue.
I've got a Devers one in my closet right now.
That's beautiful. Face of the franchise.
Yeah, I almost bought a knockoff Nomar Garciaparra one just to say that I had it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that's beautiful. I would do that too.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It will probably still happen, and I will wear it to a game just to hope to get on Nesson just to make everybody mad.
So any other takeaways from spring training that we want to get to before we wrap this episode up?
I think the last big thing is just how much bigger everybody looks. Like
a lot
of muscle mass and weight has been.
The last big thing. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I winked. Big thing, yeah.
You could hear it.
So I mean, what we talked about, Benintendi and when he bulked up and how that was sort of the beginning of the end for him. And it seems like the Red Sox have just like triple down on that. Like everyone has bulked up. What?
Except Wilyer. Wilyer
Except
has lost weight.
Poor Wilyer. But besides him, I mean, what is the policy here? Like, what do you think is going on?
The JD effect.
Maddie, do you have a take on it? Yeah.
Just Jaron Duran having him on social media doing the most amount of bicep curls, and everyone was like, I can do that many bicep curls. It's just like a competition going around.
Somebody had to fill Tyler O'Neill's shoes.
That's what I was just going to say. You would have thought that would have happened last year with Tyler O'Neill, or maybe he was just too buff and people were like, we can't compete with that. But once they see Duran do it, they're like, well, maybe.
I could do that.
Yeah. But
I think like going back to Benintendi, like I think part of the issue, the bigger part of the issue aside, like outside of him getting stronger, was he completely changed his swing to try to tap into the power that the strength should have brought him. Connor Wong's swing looks identical, but he has gotten stronger. David Hamilton's swing looks identical, but he has gotten stronger. Vaughn Grissom's swing looks identical, but he has gotten stronger. And then you've got the Beefy boys, Tristan, who looks like he's maybe slimmed down a little bit, but is still swinging with the force of 1,000 suns.
The force to break ribs.
To get stabbed every time he swings a bat.
Insane. So, I mean, you haven't seen it in the instances of changing the swing, but do you feel like they're all still just as athletic? I know we said Hamilton is, but
I think Wong for sure is. He looks much more comfortable behind the plate, and it was one appearance that I actually sat and watched a couple days ago, which Daniel Fox wrote an excellent piece for the website. If you haven't read it, 10 takeaways from spring training so far. And he talks about Wong's change in positioning because the squat looks very similar, but its glove is drastically different. But Wong is taking up more space behind the plate this year. And I think from a defensive standpoint, we're going to see a much more solid catcher. But offensively, like he looks like he could hit 20 bombs this year. Because that one he got 2 days ago that cleared the monster at JetBlue by like 20 feet. Like that thing was across Lansdowne if that was at home.
Yeah, that definitely would have broken somebody's windshield.
Yeah, that would have hit somebody in the parking garage without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think that Wong has always had that swing. I did write up an article about that, about most balls off the green monster. And since he came up, he is either one or two of most balls. So I mean, if with a little bit more power, yeah, he definitely could be a force behind the plate. Are we at all, now that we think that Wong, maybe looks more comfortable back there, are we still worried about the backup catcher situation?
No, I think Narvaez looks really good. I think that they make a really good 1-2 punch. And on the days that Wong does need to be spelled for whatever reason, be it matchups or whatever, I'm confident with Narvaez back there.
Offensively, defensively, both?
Both.
Yeah.
He's not going to hit for as much power. Yes. Defensive, I'm far more comfortable than offensive, but he's not going to hit for the kind of power that Wong is going to hit. But that, I mean, if we're talking backup catchers, we're not talking about 20 plus home run power and hitting close to 300.
So are we saying better or worse than Sandy Leon? Offensively.
Sandy Leon did hit a home run against us a couple days ago.
I'm sorry. I mean Sandy Leon in the regular season.
Okay. Better.
Better. Okay. Perfect. in the regular season, anytime in the last half decade, really is what I meant.
The MLB notification came up on my watch while I was working, and I said, "There's no way that's true."
You're like, is it a different Sandy Leon?
Right.
I didn't even.
And
know
maybe
he
it
was
is. I didn't go check.
playing.
But
yeah, I
but
know.
when that name came across, I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah, I think the last time I heard of Sandy Leon playing was maybe like minor leagues for the Mariners, like a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was even pre-pandemic. So the fact that he is still kicking around is honestly quite impressive. Good for him.
Was that the Braves game? I think it was the
Yeah,
Braves
I think
game.
it was
Yeah,
the
he's with the Braves.
game.
Wow.
They have a backup catcher spot now.
He had a home
open.
run against the Red Sox. Yes. Yeah. What is he? Murphy's out 3 to 6 weeks. With
I
a
didn't
cracked
see
rib,
that.
6 to 8, something like
Wow.
that.
So, I mean, Chris Sale, Sandy Leon back together again.
Just the 1-2 punch.
Yeah. A love story.
They're going to trade for Christian Vasquez. Blake Swihart shows up.
I mean, God knows he's probably not doing anything. So, yeah, he could show up at any time.
He's got used car salesman vibes now.
Although I believe he's from Arizona, I'm pretty sure. So he's much more likely to show up somewhere there than probably Florida.
He'll be with the Diamondbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, just hanging out. Selling t-shirts.
Begging Jordan Montgomery and Eduardo Rodriguez to throw him pitches.
You know, I mean, this is so off topic at this point, but Jordan Montgomery, I mean, he, you know, it doesn't look like he's going to be traded. It looks like he's actually going to have to stick there for the season. Yeah. And apparently, from everything I've heard,
he's going to have to be the worst financial decision the owner has ever made. Again.
Yeah, but I mean, all indications are that he's actually like performing pretty well in spring training, and actually looks like he came in and like, God, you hate to hear the freaking best shape of his life kind of thing, but they were like, wow, he really slimmed down. He looks good. So I don't know.
He's taking the opposite of the Boston Red Sox approach. That's why we didn't trade for him. He wouldn't bulk up.
Yeah, he refused. They were like, we're going to need you to bulk up. And he was like, no way. Not doing that.
I will say one thing that I didn't put anywhere, but has just occurred to me from watching spring training. Josh Winkowski looks terrible. He is a hit machine. I would not be shocked if he does not survive camp at this point.
I hope they DFA him. He's kind of a waste of a roster space right now.
I can't stand him.
Yeah, his attitude, his walk-up song, just everything about him. Ugh.
Wait.
What's the walk-up song?
I was going to say.
Now I need to know.
You can't tease that and then not say it.
Something by Creed.
As musicians, man.
No.
Well.
No.
What's going on in your head, Alex? I don't like it. Whatever it is. Are you going to defend?
I mean,
Creed?
Maybe I owned a Mark Tremonti PRS SE for some time. It was a phenomenal guitar.
Okay.
I don't have it anymore.
Look,
My Sacrifice by Creed is his walk-up song.
Oh, you can't defend that one. No. If it was higher, at least he's like leaning into the meme. Like,
no.
Honestly, that was my first thought too. I was like, maybe if it's higher, I mean, he has the mustache, like maybe he's like you know, like, I don't know, like real hipster with it or something, but it's not.
You can't even defend it.
He went for a deeper cut, and I don't like that.
He's about to reach the Creed B-sides.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think, like, honestly, all you really need to know is the Creed thing.
Based on his walk-up music, get him off my team.
Honestly, I mean, it is something that we are going to talk about on this podcast, I think, probably a lot, is that when walk-up songs are actually, like, solidified, like, that is something I always check into, and I, like, can't wait to see what
should we write a joint piece on that, Adam?
Oh, definitely. 100%.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, that's
Brock,
something
when you're listening, to make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to do.
I mean, I check that every year when the walk-up songs come out. It's just like what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
It tells you a lot about their personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think like it also, it does, because it tells you who's like who takes it seriously and who is absolutely ridiculous. And I kind of like the people that take it like very unseriously. I think that shows a good. I think it's the sign of a good clubhouse if you don't need something that's going to super pump you up. If you can,
Yep.
have a little
careless whisper.
Yeah, something like that. So Winkowski, we're thinking out. Anyone else? I mean, I think we've talked about are positives so far from spring training. Is there anyone else who's like disappointing you? Well, I guess we mentioned Campbell.
Not
Campbell
really.
has not really performed, but
Isaiah Campbell has looked okay.
A different Campbell.
Growth from last year. Winkowski's, I mean, there's been some home run issues and there's been some defensive lapses, but most of those have come from low leverage relievers. In terms of the starters that should be starting so far, I think that Crochet has looked really good. Buehler looked good. Hout got hit around a little bit, but it was his first start after a rain delay start. Because he was supposed to start the game against the Yankees that just got canceled. And so it pushed it back. I think we'll see Bayo probably sometime next week. From kind of what it looks like, maybe towards the end of next week. Hopefully he looks good.
Do you have any
Hendricks didn't look great.
Do you have any indications of whether Bayo will, you think, start the season in the rotation?
The last thing that came out said that he should be ready for opening day.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you believe that?
Versus him headed to the bullpen or him starting on the IL?
I don't know. I guess
I don't think he heads to the bullpen at all. I think they would be more likely to send him to AAA than put him in the bullpen.
Yeah, have a couple warm up games in AAA.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possible.
I don't think that they would have said he's on track to start opening day, because that's been kind of the verbiage with Giolito too. So I don't think that they would use that verbiage with him if they didn't think that he would be ready. And, he came out and said, 2 weeks ago? What, Maddie?
Oops, sorry. Giolito makes his first start on Thursday versus the Blue Jays. So next episode, we can review his performance.
Yeah, I think the way that the Red Sox came into the season saying that, occasionally they might use a 6-man rotation, and the fact that up to this point, we haven't seen Crawford, Bayo, or Giolito. It just made me wonder if, we'll use some of the flexibility with supposedly having excess starters to have someone like Bayo start in AAA, just to kind of have some other guys, in the rotation to see what we have from,
Because Priester has made 2 starts. Fitz has come out of the bullpen. I would be fine with either one of them starting.
I do wonder about
I don't
like if they have been using him out of the bullpen. I wonder if that's something that they're consider breaking camp with him as a bullpen arm, maybe
like your built-in opener.
Like playing like a swing role, like kind of
where everybody kind of had penciled Cutter.
Right, exactly.
It went to a 6-man rotation. Yeah.
Exactly. I kind of wonder.
I think that they're more likely to do that than shift Bayo to something like that. I don't think Bayo sees any time ever in the bullpen, ever.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's his personality. I don't think that he would respond well to that. What did he say? It was a couple weeks ago where he said that the pressure of the contract got to him last season and that he's dealt with that now. And so he's very confident that this will be a different Brian Bayo, which I really hope. I love Brian Bayo. I really want him to be successful.
Yeah, I think anytime that Pedro like takes a liking to a pitcher, it's always like very like you know you always get like the warm feels about it.
I wish
You
that
know,
he would
so-
stop calling them mini Pedros because I think that puts way too much pressure on them. But
Yeah, I don't think that's great, but I think that
But-
working with Pedro and having Pedro like you is probably like can only be a good thing, really.
yeah.
So anything
Is there
else
any
we
other,
want to
you guys
cover?
got final thoughts outside of that? Yeah.
I have no final thoughts. I'm looking forward to watching some of these spring training games. Keep taking in the team, keep hoping that no one else gets injured, and that's really it. That's all I'm going.
Do you
for
have
right
your
now.
Trace Thompson jersey ordered yet, Adam?
I need to figure out what number he wears first. I haven't gotten that far yet. So I think, if he gets added to the 40-man, though, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. You
Because
got
up
to
to
go
that
City
point-
Connect or just standard home light?
Well, I mean, if this is going to be one of the last years at City Connect, I think you have to go City Connect, right?
Well, I mean, the yellows are part of the standard jersey rotation now.
The new City Connect with the Trace Thompson jersey.
No.
You'd be the only one that has it. That's a collector's item.
Amazing.
You could sell it to his mom.
But I mean, those are really my only thoughts. Yeah, and definitely looking forward to seeing Trace Thompson continue to improve. So excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Maddie? Anything you're looking forward to?
I hope Roman Anthony makes the major league roster sometime early in the season. And I want to end on a positive note, but DFA Winkowski.
Which is
I'm so glad I brought that up.
Yeah. And you, Alex, any last thoughts?
I mean, in case you haven't heard, I really think the Boston Red Sox should trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I know that's breaking news to anybody who's listened to every episode, but I'm going to keep I'm going to keep pounding that drum.
Anyone who's listened to every single episode
supporting that trade, it's because I'm dead.
Isn't the only person who's listened to all of our episodes basically your dad? Isn't that pretty much it?
Yep. What's up, Chuck? Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right, let's wrap this up.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Talk Sox podcast. We will be back very soon with more spring training takes. And in case the Red Sox sign anybody who we think will make the 40-man roster, we'll be there for that one too.